You've been talking about Darwin Núñez a little bit this season, of course, and he said recently, and he was talking about his time at Benfica, where, of course, scored a lot of goals, which is why Liverpool went for him. He said, the first year went very badly for me. In the second, I exploded. And you've tipped him to really ignite the season.
Yeah, well, he scored 6 goals in his first season at Benfica, and that was it. I think he's been a little bit harsh on himself because he wasn't a passenger. He was creative. He made stuff happen.
Definitely, Ian would never be a passenger.
No, exactly. But even when he wasn't scoring goals, he would make stuff happen. But he had suspension, injury, then there was COVID in that first season. So there are a lot of extenuating circumstances. But yeah, I always had this feeling that if you look at it, like goals per minute or goal contributions per minute, by far the most impactful player of Liverpool so far this season. So if you have good Salah and if you have Darwin starting more and more and more, Liverpool have got something going. But as we were saying on a Ramble Reacts yesterday, actually, Marcus, I mean, Jim was talking before about how West Ham had their bit at Anfield. Bournemouth had their bit at Anfield as well. As I was saying to you, I think Liverpool's results have been quite a bit better than the performances so far. The game against Newcastle, they never should have won in a million years. And of course, it's huge credit to them and Darwin that they did win that.
Shows the character of the side.
Yeah, of course. But I just think for Liverpool, there's a huge margin of progression still, even though they're doing quite well results-wise. Whereas with Spurs, how much better can they get than they currently are, do you think?
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to ask Jim if he saw anything in the North London derby. Like, obviously, it must have been hard for you because of the
I had my eyes shut
of the North London derby. But I wondered, like, how much of what is spoken about at Spurs you saw in the flesh in such a big game, in their biggest game so far, as like long term, if that makes sense, or like something they can carry into this weekend at least.
Their press was brilliant. Really, that's the best Arsenal have been pressed this season.
Right.
And if they can keep that up, that's always the concern for a team that starts really, really well, isn't it? That maybe one bad result derails it and you kind of revert to type and you don't play in the same way. But that was the thing that caused Arsenal the most problems. I mean, Jorginho's mistake comes as a direct consequence of that. So, I mean, maybe you argue it's not a mistake for that reason. That was the thing that was most different about them from past seasons because, you know, obviously under Conte and Mourinho, they weren't on the front foot. And this is what Spurs fans have been saying for years as well. Like that is the style of play that they've always kind of had and that they've always wanted and that they've become known for and that they put a lot of stock in as part of their identity, and that does appear to be back. So that was the most notable change, I think.
But they're up against the press master himself, Jürgen Klopp.
Indeed.
It could end up being like a big scrum.
But I think
or an explosion. They might split the atom.
You say that. Lars Sivertsen was saying, if you look at the numbers closely, he was saying to me that Liverpool don't press as much this season as they have done in previous seasons, which I think is interesting.
One of the things they seem really good at is they kind of embrace being a bit more chaotic. I wonder if that's why Núñez is having quite a good start to this season, because he's just chaos.
Yeah.
He's like, I know this. I remember this. Like even Szoboszlai, who has had a great start to the season. The idea that like he's actually a figure of calm in there is wild.
You don't introduce him for anything other than hero ball.
Yeah,
that's what he's there for. He's your Kobe Bryant basically.
But, I mean, but they're still feeling it out though, aren't they, Liverpool? Because you're right, they don't press like they used to. Because in that midfield, it was very industrious. It was brilliant. But I mean, players like Wijnaldum or Henderson when he was fit. You remember?
And it's still taking shape as well.
It's taking shape exactly, and they're kind of feeling out. To me, and this would perhaps be what Liverpool fans will be hoping for. If you remember at the start of last season, when Manchester City took a little bit of time getting used to it, was it Haaland up front and one or two other names in there? You know, they were implementing a slightly different way of doing things, and it did take. I mean, in that first sort of 5 or 6 months of the season, you didn't think that they would go and win the treble. Perhaps you think it was outrageous, of course, but they took on and then boom, off they went. And perhaps we may see that with Liverpool, because I agree with you, Andy. I think that their results have been better than their performances, but they're still unbeaten. They've won 5 out of 6 in the league, and they're the ones. It's early days, of course. They're only 2 points above Spurs, but they're the ones ultimately keeping pace with Man City.
Depending on the points balance, obviously, where exactly City are. If they're in the top 3 in December, January, they're laughing. They've got a platform to do something pretty amazing, haven't they?
Yeah, indeed they have. Speaking of Liverpool strikers, or certainly a former one, did you see Luis Suarez scoring an overhead kick at his son's 10th birthday party?
He can't turn it off, can he? He'll be doing this when he's 90.
Yeah.
And there will be physical consequences for it, but he will keep doing it.
It was a beauty.
It really was.
It was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a load of 10-year-olds, but it's still...
Yeah, but it's still
an overhead kick.
It's not like he's just running rings around them and then just slotted one past the helpless lad in goal.
Yeah.
It was actually...
I mean,
all
the kids will want to see him do that.
Yeah,
there was a
that.
pitch invasion, wasn't there, afterwards?
Yeah, there is that as well. I mean, it's not like, like if I don't know. You could imagine Jamie Vardy at a kid's birthday party, just mugging
baiting
off
the kids.
Yeah, mugging off.
He would be, wouldn't he? Shit house everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas
Blowing out the candles.
I'll have the first slice.
Yeah.
No, I think there were two things that it really reminded me of. Firstly, do you remember that time when Bayern were on tour in New York City and Xabi Alonso and Arturo Vidal played, I think, 38-year-olds?
Right.
On a pitch by the Hudson River. It was amazing.
Well, not 38-year-olds, 30.
Yes. Gap
children.
8-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yes. It was an amazing combination if you think about it, because Xabi Alonso can hit any pass he wants, and Arturo Vidal has no problem with two-footing kids.
Yeah.
So it works really well. The other thing it reminded me of is when it was my youngest son's 10th birthday party a couple of months ago.
Still not passing the ball, Andy.
Yeah, I think I told you about this. They brought on the parents for the last 10 minutes, and so I thought, I was having fun, being a bit respectful, playing quite well, and I got absolutely flattened. And I looked round, and it was my 11-year-old.
Yes.
Oh.
And the thing is, that sort of full-on slide tackle where you take everything for 11 and 12-year-olds is known as a Brexit. And he simply stood over me and he went, "Brexit means Brexit, Dad."
Really?
Can you believe that?
It's known as a Brexit?
Yes.
Yeah, Brexit tackle, yeah.
Oh, I didn't
like
know
a
that.
properly clearing
I'll tell
someone
you
out.
what, the party organiser, /ref, gave me a sympathy penalty.
Andy.
It was awful.
Oh, my goodness.